Hey, how you guys doing? I'm Tarnish. This is the MMO Avengers channel. The whole point of the channel is to bring awareness to the new MMO creators and to really point out the pros and the cons of these new MMOs. I feel like the MMO community is slowly dying, and the only way we can save it is we come together and to really help these developers out and really give them positive and critical feedback on some of these MMOs coming out. Again, I'm Tarnish. I'm an avid MMO RPG player. I have a lot of experience with theme park MMOs. Always enjoyed the sandbox MMOs and survival games. But yeah, and let's pass it off to Ricayu to introduce himself.
Hey guys, I am Rick or Ricayu, and same as Tarnish. I have been playing MMOs for many years, and this is ranging from Star Wars to, of course, World of Warcraft. Who hasn't dabbled in that one, right? Even down just the fun things like Minecraft. Had my own server once upon a time, but I love healing in MMO, so that's where a lot of my perspective comes from. But we're really looking forward for you joining the team. So it's not just a channel for Tarnish and myself. But just like Tarnish was hitting on, you are a part of the Avengers as well. And we want you to join us to help save MMOs with your voice, with your concerns, with your comments. Because if we do band together, guys, we're gonna make a difference, and we have a voice. And we do make a stand for what we really care about, what we want to see, and we want the MMO creators to really produce the best games. And so we want to give them some accountability. So that's what we're here for, and that's what this channel is here for. So today we're hitting on
Ashes of Creation.
now this game is not out yet. This is very early on. This is literally an alpha 1. There's pre-alpha, and there's even Ashes of the Apocalypse, right? So that was even like further back. But this is super early on. So big disclaimer. Um, this game is likely to change. Some of the information that we're covering today is going to change as months progress. So we're reviewing the available information that we have at our fingertips today. But again, um, be prepared because they are still in development. Why are we covering it? Well, it's important, and it's a big game that's coming. A lot of people are talking. There's a lot of hype, and so we really want to break it down. And if we can lend our voice to Ashes of Creation, well, then maybe they can put in some things that are really important to us. All right, and so Tarnish, what are some of the things that we're going to be talking about today?
Hey, Rick. All right, so am I live right now? Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think it's really important to distinguish why we're giving feedback now instead of just waiting until the game comes
Yep.
comes out. The reality is right now it's an alpha. Right now is a perfect time to give feedback because they can actually change it. A lot of times people give feedback, but it's already in a phase where it would break too many systems if they fixed it. So you want to give feedback when as soon as you can, really. So if you see a system that's broken or it's not working right, or you think there could be a lot of issues or can be exploited, or maybe an add-on could do it better, this is definitely the time to give feedback. So I know I'm guilty of posting on the forums and got a lot of negative and positive feedback. The importance of feedback, guys, is to make the game better. So if we are a little harsh, or maybe we really like something, like Rick said, there's a very high chance that it's going to change for better or for worse, depending on what the topic is. Understand there's a big picture here, and as a creator, they have a huge monumental task of trying to make all this come together, and it's really hard, and it's very easy for them to miss something, which is why the feedback is needed. I think the best place to start, Rick, would probably be on the node system. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think that's really one of the groundbreaking things that not only Ashes of Creation is trying to do, but I think more modern games is trying to do just to have that interactive feel to it. Do you want to start explaining or want me to go ahead and tackle that one?
All right, I'm going to switch over to the wiki here. I have the nodes open.
Cool.
If you want to break down the nodes, there's four actual main types of nodes. I don't know if you want to break that down. You
Sure.
seem like you're
Yeah.
really good on this.
So basically, the node system, we're all going to emerge from these different portals in the game, and there's really one per race, but you can really choose wherever you want to spawn. So if you want to if I want to be an orc and you want to be an elf, and our buddy wants to be a human, we can all spawn in the same one, and we could actually even skip the starting zone if we want to, and just get started on these nodes. Now the nodes are going to be developing by everything you do. If you gather resources, if you complete quests, you're going to mature your node. Your node's going to grow up, and the first part of it is going to be a little expedition, just like a little campfire. But as the more you do for your node and the more you interact with your node, it's going to happen. It's going to mature to like this little outpost, little campsite. And then eventually at stage 3, it's going to become a little village. And so at that point, your node has grown in influence. And now the surrounding nodes, the surrounding little areas, can't develop past that point. So you are now basically the center of influence in that little area. And then you can keep growing and keep contributing to your node, keep affecting your world. And what's crazy is if you develop on the along the sea, along the ocean, well then what ends up happening is your quests and your story end up being influenced. Like as far as there's going to be like a maritime feel, and there's going to be ocean monsters. If we develop by the forest, there might be bear monsters. There might be depending on where you develop your node is actually going to change the world bosses, the dungeons. So one server may have certain nodes developed, and those things are going to be like they're going to have different raid content, different world bosses. So every server is going to be a little different, which is really going to be cool to see what develops in each. Now, there are going to be 4 different types of development that you can do, and even the shape of your town, the architecture is going to be influenced by 4. So the first one is probably going to be pretty popular. It's very commercial, and so that is going to be where you have basically economical, and so you're going to see that. So the economic node is going to eventually lead when you get to Metropolis, where you can have auction houses. You can connect with other economic metropolises, have like a similar economy where they're linked and they're bound together. Basically the leadership would be decided by you can basically buy it, so you can pay off the other people of the town and be like, I'm going to be the mayor, and the mayor makes big decisions.
Money, money, money.
And they can like be in charge of taxes, decide what buildings go up. They want to have apartment complexes, more people move in. What's great is if I'm a crafter, and I love crafting in games, if I'm a member of the economic metropolis, well then, and you can only be a member of one place. So I have to choose, this is where I'm going to be a resident. So I can't be like, what's cool though is as a member of an economic metropolis, I can have a shop in multiple places around the world. I can have a warehouse that's supplying those shops throughout the world, and I'm collecting an income. So actually really, really cool. That's a huge advantage. And so that's really cool. The second type, and there's other things like a stock exchange, and all sorts of other types of buildings. The wiki just goes into detail with all the things you can do. Second type is a military type of influence, as far as that's what if you want to have for your town. And the leadership is determined there by having a champion, not you, because there's different classes. You might be a rogue and I might be a priest. A priest should not win that duel, right? So we would have a champion that we basically are gearing, that we're equipping. And
So
go ahead.
Real quick. So the economic node, let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
So the economic node is for trade and merchants, and it seems to be all about money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think are some good things about that, and what are some bad things about that?
Well, I definitely think that if you are someone who's crafting and you're making your own gear and you want to like raise funds, I think the economic node is going to be amazing, right? The only thing is that let's say we have somebody who, if they can't nip gold farming in the bud, or, then basically your leadership is determined by somebody who is like running bots. And so there's definitely vulnerabilities in just having money being the king. But again, you have to buy your votes. Like basically you're paying the other members. So basically to get to vote for you. So basically you're just, whoever has the most money ends up winning that. It's like kind of like our leadership is by auction. So the best leader is not going to be in charge. It is going to be whoever has the most money. And maybe that's what we want, because if then they're making money for themselves, we're all making money. But that's I think a disadvantage.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I don't know. That gives me a little bit of a feel of Galaxies, Star Wars Galaxies, where people used to set up shops and be known for being a vendor or a trader, which is really, really cool. But also, I'm a little bit of worry when I think about it, because I've been playing Classic a lot, obviously, our last podcast was about Classic, and bots have really gotten out of control in the
Yeah.
MMO community, and I wonder how that could affect the nodes.
Yeah.
So, but besides that, I mean, economic seems cool. I think you're going to the military one next, right?
Yeah.
So, you want to give us a general rundown of the military, and then we can talk about it.
Sure. So, military node is going to basically have a few big advantages. The leadership is going to be decide on who's the strongest. We're going to be decided in combat, but not again. I am a priest and or a cleric, and you are a rogue, because that would not be fair. I'm going to get my butt kicked. I love to heal. I combat. No. So, but I'm going to have a champion. So if I'm doing crafting and I'm making this really epic swords and stuff, maybe I'm a swordsmith or something, and I give that to my champion, and I'm getting cool stuff, and I'm like equipping him, and my champion goes in there and beats the out of yours. Well, guess what? I'm now the leader because and so that's incentive to have trades in military as well, because you want to have people who can make that great gear, and you want to like be able to equip your champions, and so that's a really cool thing, that it's kind of a skill based thing. That doesn't mean that they're going to be the best leader. I've known some people who are very good at PvP. Who you would not want to lead you, so I think that could be a disadvantage. But it's based off of something that you're doing, something you're preparing and prepping for. So the other thing about the military node is the region is going to have a corruption reduction, and we're going to talk a little bit about corruption a little bit later. But corruption, basically, you can basically get rid of it faster, and then the other big thing is you have the ability to have a bounty hunter that you can award as a quest that you can award your citizens, and now they can go around the world, and people who are PKers or people who are going to be killing other players, or maybe there's somebody who's robbing your guys' like trade wagons. So if you want to ship goods from one place to another, you have to have like these little wagons that you send out, and so basically like they're like, it's not like a mail system. You actually are going ahead and you're shipping out a little donkey and a little wagon that's pulling it. That can get attacked, and some of your stuff gets stolen, and that's terrible. So let's say you have some people who are just like assaulting you, and they're killing your members, and you actually can have someone who can track them on the map. They ping. They're like, oh, they're in this mountain. You rally up. You all ride out, and like they're in stock waiting to get the next person, and you can totally kill that person. And then it's kind of a cool way of managing your node. Like you literally have the ability and the power and the information to like, oh no, you want to come to the military node? We got our eyes on you. We can defend ourselves. So there's definitely some cool things that the military node has that the others don't. So really good defense for those people who maybe just are just trying to like do leveling and questing, and someone just comes up and kills them for no reason. They can defend themselves.
What do you think is the biggest advantage of a military node?
I think that defense, right? So I think that the ability to have bounty hunters, and there's always going to be loopholes to everything that we're talking about. So as we're like, some of you guys are thinking, oh, I think I could take advantage. I know how I can beat around that. But I think that with the military node, though, if you were the only military node on the server and you're the only one who can track player killers, that is a huge advantage. Because I'm thinking, again, the commerce one, the economic one, geez, like that I totally get. I would like to be a part of Metropolis. There's another one that I really would want to be a part of too. Military, though, is very defensive, and the ability to clean up your corruption. If you guys wanted to be the player killers, and you wanted to be the Alpha Guild, and you wanted to hunt down other, like, be like the aggressors, I think that that's probably the way to go, because you also clean up your corruption. And so I think that that could be an advantage if that's the playstyle you wanted to go for.
It does seem to be more combat and class training focused.
Yeah.
So that's just what it says here. So it looks like you could train, and it's very, very combat focused. I definitely like the idea of having a champion, having a fight for leadership. It sounds really cool. As long as everything's balanced, you're able to, like you said, it would kind of suck to be a priest and like, oh well, there's no way I'm winning that, But then again, maybe you could have me fight for you, or maybe someone else fight for you, or maybe there's some other system entirely where you have to duel, or maybe it's strategic where you have maybe like a chess game or something that you'd have to.
So instead of having someone fight for you, they want to have basically, imagine just like it's like a kind of like an NPC that I'm equipping. And I'm not sure if I would play as that NPC, or basically I think I actually operate him, or it's just like, I don't know if it's going to be like, okay, equip your champion, they fight on their own. I really do believe it's combat oriented. So I would be playing as my champion. So I'm kind of like my priest is in the crowd, but I take control over my champion and we go in some arena and we like wail on each other. I think that's what they're going for. But again, there are information is sometimes scarce. I believe that that champion system is something you control and it's equal. So it's like I have a gladiator, do you have a gladiator? What did you give your gladiator for combat? And now let's go ahead and I'm playing my gladiator, you're playing your gladiator, and we're going to go and fight. So I think that's the way it's oriented. I could be wrong on this, but again, this is based off my best information from the forums. And again, all this is likely to change. So this is not
Yeah.
fixed in stone.
Well, I do hope it's fair, and I hope that everyone has
Yeah.
a fair opportunity. I hope it's very strategic based, since it's the military nodes. Military is very strategic, like war games, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'd almost be down with like a old school, like I said, where you got like a bunch of pikemen, you got a bunch of swordsmen. You guys got to literally have a little war, like a chess war game strategy.
That could be cool.
I think that'd be a lot of fun because it shows you to have real general type leadership. But yeah, okay. What would be the next one you want to go over? Which node?
I think scientific is probably the next. It's really well developed and really well explained. A lot of information on it. So scientific is really going to have two huge advantages. Number one, if you are an artisan, if you're someone who makes gear and you're going to want to like develop it, there's a lot of recipes that you're going to be getting into the scientific node that you're not going to be going somewhere else. So me as a crafter, I'm okay. I kind of want to be a resident of a commercial, place, economic place, but then I'm kind of like, wow, I kind of want to be a resident of someone that's scientific, because then I'm gonna get all the recipes. I'm gonna like get things that no one else has. Then I can sell things, and then but then I'm not gonna be able to have shops all over the world. So I'm kind of torn. I'm like, man, but scientific, here's another huge advantage. So as a crafter, I have to get goods from all over the world. I need PvPers who are collecting goods from their PvP events. I need PvE goods. So to make all these things, I'm gonna need to be getting goods from all over the place. How do I get those goods? We're literally shipping them, and that can get robbed along the way. So I'm like, here's something really cool about scientific. Teleportation is going to be something very rare in this world. And so we are literally going to have the ability from that node. So we have the town, now we become a city. Those surrounding nodes are now ours. We kind of rule those areas. So you have this teleportation system that you have for your surrounding nodes that you can basically be sending stuff to your to your metropolis. So you basically are controlling. So you're not having to worry about all your stuff getting jacked along the way. It's just like teleport it. Which if that's the way it's gonna be, geez, let's go. The other cool thing is if there's another scientific metropolis, we can link our metropolises and send an airship. So I could be shipping goods from this metropolis. So there's these mountains over here, and I'm like farming all this stuff. I bring it to the metropolis, airship it. I can cross all these great distances really, really fast. And you're seeing some of the game footage. And what's really cool is you're actually seeing different kind of cultures and different. So depending if you are scientific or military, even the look of your town is going to change. If you are elven, or if you're more orcish and you're like, then now you're going to have that influence. So all these towns you can see, look at that town, Metropolis looks totally different, right? So you're seeing all these different things that are shaping your cities, shaping your nodes, all these influences that are affecting it. So it's really, really cool. And all the footage, the lighting, the Real Engine 4 that they're building this game with is looking pretty awesome. But yeah, scientific is pretty awesome for that teleportation and the airship system between the two scientific metropolises. And the final one, do you want to talk about the scientific? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I'm just reading it, and it looks like there's the scientific one has something to do with artisanship and construction focused.
Yeah.
So obviously there's some perks to each one. I think the economic one is definitely gonna be best for merchants or traders.
Yeah.
Just the advantages they gain, I think it's just gonna be way better. However, if you want to be an artisan of whatever,
Yeah.
it actually specifically says following skill trees, gathering processes, crafting within each of these artisan class lies different professions. So it's kind of cool. You become like a legit artisan and be more construction focused. I'm not sure what this. It says that each of these have their own NPCs. So you got the priest with the divine,
Oh,
you have merchants with the
yeah.
economic, military does get guards, and then there's scientific get scholars.
Yeah, so basically there's going to be quest people. So like at the encampment, you're going to have basically who you're completing quests for. You're going to complete the quest for the priest. So you basically who do you want, what do you want to promote your node to be? So that's basically what these which NPCs are you interacting with, which one are you fueling. So basically you're choosing your path on who you're helping and um and so that's kind of what that's kind of referencing. So you actually can kind of see some of those. So which way do you want to go? Do you want to help the guards? Do you want to help the priests? Do you want to? So how are you going to develop your area? And so you just complete those quests and interact with those NPCs. And then the one that I had the least information about was the divine. And even on the wiki, you go there and you're like, it's very underwhelming. I mean, there's some
Yeah.
stuff about temples and so there's a big thing about religions in the game, and so but there's I have more questions on that one than I can give you answers. I don't know. Does that mean that you can have a really cool temple? Does that give you buffs? Does that give you like I don't know. But it's very quest oriented where you have to complete quests for leadership. So, scientific, the way that you get elected to leadership is by electoral. So basically, you have to have an election, and it's like, vote for me, guys, vote for me. And then basically, you can just vote out the next mayor. Like, so that to me has the most accountability. Your mayor had better do a good job or they get out. Whereas if military, if I'm best at combat, I don't know how you get that guy out. I mean, he's just big and beating everybody. Someone has a ton of money. How do you get him out? He's just super wealthy. So it seems like scientific, you have the most control over your leadership.
More
Divine, yeah,
democratic.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So that's pretty cool. I like that model. Um, just in case you get someone bad in there, I mean, you only get them for a month, like later, buddy. And then Divine, though, it's the guy who basically lives online, is doing quests all day. Oh, you did the most quests. Congratulations to you. And I'm like, I don't know if I like that. I'm like, okay. But that's how the divine leadership gets picked. So that one seems weird. I want to know more about it.
Yeah, I feel like the mine's still in under construction, if you will. It says it's more skill and equipment augmented focused,
Hmm.
so it might be more about kind of enchanting and powering up your guy through your skill and augments, which augments have a lot to
Oh,
do
your
with
secondary.
your
Yeah.
secondary when you pick a class
Yeah.
or whatever. There's a
Okay.
primary and secondary choice, so I think that's what it has more to do with that.
Okay.
Obviously, the quest thing is still valid. So overall, the node system, I hope you guys have a general idea of how it works. Is essentially you're just gonna capture a point, level it up through doing quests, and then becomes more of, like I said, it advances over time. Um, so it's a really cool system. I say overall, I think it's really cool. I think the node systems is what a couple of games are using now, and they're getting more and more advanced with each MMO. This one sounds like it's gonna be the most advanced we've seen yet. Um, I have this little diagram here. There you go. So you can kind of get a general idea. So this will be the main node, and you have all these secondary stages and whatever how it's going to get affected. It sounds really complicated, but I don't think it's gonna be that complicated once you see it in game. Um, it's relatively a cool system. It's a way to evolve the game and feel like your character's actually affecting the world
Hmm.
through the actions of your character, which is something that Guild Wars 2 tried to capture a long time ago with its live events and quests and stuff like that. But this is a little bit a better a way of doing so.
Now,
So I don't know.
what are your thoughts, Tarnish, about the basically like we can topple a metropolis and in basically now so like number 6 there that could die, like that can get sieged and destroyed, and then one of the other number 5s can then become the next metropolis in the area, and then now we're going to have new world bosses, new like dungeons, new. What are your thoughts on the rise and possible fall of metropolises?
I definitely think that it's a cool idea. Um, it's kind of hard because there's a lot of systems in play in the game, and the node system in general is really relatively unique. This game is more unique in the fact that all the different systems it has, which it has a lot of stuff going on in this game, and how they all intersect each other is really where I feel like my opinion starts to shift a little bit. The system of the nodes and the metropolises, I think it's great. I think it's an awesome system. I think it's really, really cool. I like the fact that you can siege and break these things down. Um, I don't want to go too far into the PvP and whatnot, but I definitely think that it could be hard. Just my experience playing like Arc or anything else that's kind of like open world,
Okay.
kind of sandboxy.
Conan and stuff like that. Yeah.
Conan,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, when you play these other games, you kind of notice that like a lot of times there is one supreme power on the server, and it's usually this one really strong or very large guild, and that does kind of worry me a little bit, um, especially with new MMOs that come out. Because like, let's face it, like most MMOs have a huge, even World of Warcraft these days have a huge drop off at about 1 to 2 months. There's a huge drop off of players, so I'm just a little concerned on the time frame, how this is going to launch, how the metropolises are going to work, because the metropolises take quite a while to build. You're not going to just get one over a day. That's something we should probably go over actually, is the metropolis and how long it's going to take you to get there. So, for example, wilderness to expedition is only going to take you a few hours. To get to a camp, it's only going to take you a few more hours. And to get to a village, which is where your first actual setup of some kind of structure, it's going to take you a few days. This will be your first introduction to some small houses. And then you get a town after a few days, or just as many days actually. So it's probably gonna be a little bit. Then you get medium houses. Then you get the city after a few weeks, and then you get a metropolis after a few weeks after that, many weeks after that, I should say. So if you add all those together, you got quite a bit going on. It's gonna take you quite a while to get to metropolis. And then, like I said, with that drop of players, you can really see a change up of powers, and I could definitely see an alpha guild holding onto a metropolis. And at the same time, I think a metropolis, you're probably going to want them to hang around for a little bit. You want to milk some of those resources,
Yeah.
and experience all the content before you move on to something new. But then again, every server is going to be different, which is something cool and something that is, I would say, a pro to it. Kind of like Arc in a way. It was very sandboxy in the same way, where no one server was the same. You went to this server and had a king queen. You had this server and then it was just pure on chaos and constant war. And you forget trying to raid on that server because you're just gonna get attacked nonstop. And so like every server is gonna be different. So you might what might happen, which would be kind of cool, is you might have one server that's known for PvE content where people are there trying to raid, trying to see who's the truly best. And you might have another server which is just pure chaos and PvP nutty, and you might have another server where it's a little bit of balance of both, a true PVX experience, I guess. But yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. I definitely like this node system, and I hope more MMOs take on the node system, just because I think it's, again, what Guild Wars 2 tried to accomplish was making so your character really felt like it was affecting the world, and I feel like the node system does that. I think it does a really good job doing that. So I'd say big kudos to Ashley Creations for using a node system, and not only that, but picking such an advanced node system. Like, this took a lot of work. What about you? What do you think about this, the nodes and the metropolises and how they're formed and the pros and cons?
Well, I think it's replayability, right? So, first of all, a Metropolis is going to be a ton of work, and what's really cool, there's benefits to it. So, if I have stuck to my town, and I saw it like come from a little expedition to like a little village, and I buy a house in the village early on, and then we become a city. Well, then now I have like one of the really nice houses in the city, and then it becomes a metropolis. Well, because I'm one of the original like village holders, like I have one of those little houses, that becomes one of the mansions in the metropolis. So it's kind of cool that there's rewards, and like I am going to be so invested to that metropolis because that mansion I could turn around and sell it. I can turn around and just like, and there's not going to be like a gold cap, like, oh, you can only sell your houses for this much. So if it's like a really cool town and there's like someone wanting to move in and they're like, oh, I could cash out if I wanted to. And I've learned all the recipes. It's a scientific node. I'm like, you know what? Now I'm going to go ahead and go to that commercial node over there. I'm going to go ahead and buy a house over there. And I'm going to go ahead and like have shops all over the world, right? So it's really cool that you can interact and experience. There's variety, just in not just the type of node, but just the type of architecture. So I don't think it's even possible if we just picked the same spots to develop our cities that we're going to have the same world. So it's really, really interesting. So, and I'm really curious about developing I'd love to see like a seaside like town next to a cliff with the ocean there. Like that would be, to me, that'd be super
Yeah,
dope, right?
that'd be dope.
I mean,
That'd be dope.
having like a harbor and like having so like naval ships and like attacking other, that to me there's so many possibilities. I'm like, man, like what? Like there's just I'm so down to explore this. And if after like a year, like I think Metropolis may take 6 months, like just to get that thing going. Just look counting the time, and you're like, wow, that's just to get going. So now let's enjoy this for the next 6 months, year. So after a while, the wiki does say that the resources are going to get eventually drained. So I don't know if that means that we're going to have to. Again, this is complete supposition, a complete guess on my part. If we are going to go ahead and we've mined and we harvested everything we can and we've sapped this area out, do you keep just importing things from long distances and risk it, or do you say, you know what, guys, let's go ahead and do you start up? Do you sell your that's one of the advantages of the commercial economic one is you could like sell shares and just sell your city and like have shares and like have someone buy. So I don't know. Do you just move on somewhere else and like, hey, we're gonna start another metropolis. Let's attack that. Let's build up a new thing. Or maybe it's a whole world decision. It's like, hey, we're tired of that. We hate that dungeon. Like, we hate that raid. Let's go ahead and like establish this city. And I don't know how cooperative it's gonna be or how like contested it's gonna be. But there's so many possibilities, different play experiences that I'm really curious. I'm like, how's this gonna work out? How's this gonna pan out? So there's definitely some good possibilities where I'm like, like let's. I want to kind of dive in and see what's going to happen.
All right, yeah. So you definitely hit on a few pretty cool items. Um, uh, I'd say that how are those going to come down, right? And how is it all going to work? Is it going to be worth keeping one that you've depleted all of the resources around? I think it really comes down to the type of node you have and how useful and effective it is to the world. And that's where I think the economic one, for an example, I think would be one that you might want to keep up because it gives you such a lucrative option. Those trade stations that you put up or merchant stations, wherever you put up, or shops around the world, those might be sought after.
Yeah.
You know, if you put them in good places, they might be like, you know what, let's leave that up because that dude has a shop here and it helps me out. You know,
Yep.
I can go sell my stuff, whatever the case may be. You know, or buy his wonderful, you have really good craft and you have all your stuff on there and you have really good stuff. So no one's to give up your shop. So your shop value could make the node more valuable. Maybe a military node if it's tapped out, and that might be one where you're kind of like, we can do without this one. You know, we can just siege war somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it really depends on the specific node type combined with how useful that node is, and not to mention eventually if you say you have a bunch of metropolises that everyone's really experiencing the full content, it might not need to change until people have experienced it all. So it also depends, I think, on your community. So if your community on that server wants to experience every little detail of the current content, it might take a while. You know, you could easily go maybe a year before you start tearing down metropolises, and maybe 6 months. Just really just depends on how quickly we're burning through the content. So, which I know in retail and a lot of open world, should I say, like I'd say Conan, I would say Arc, for example. If you have a good community where they're letting you experience the content, which on the PV side of things, which is really hard to say that it's going to happen with so much PvP potential in this game, which could either slow down the progression or it could be a little bit more passive and it'll increase the speed of progression. In current games right now, content doesn't last very long. You're lucky to have a raid content or raid boss last a couple of days. You know, if it lasts a week, that's good. I think it's been a really long time since we've had a truly difficult boss that's taken a really long time to kill. I think Shadowlands just had the hardest raid tier I think they've ever had, and that's mostly because things were tuned incorrectly. But even then, I think they still cleared it. I think in like the first 2 weeks, so it didn't last that long.
think it was the end of December, like the 23rd or 22nd, that they finally got it all down.
Yeah.
So it took a while.
Yeah, so it's hard to say if that was for the right reasons, for the wrong reasons, but content doesn't typically last very long, and I think that's a really good point to think about when thinking about raid content. And once you kill all the content, you really don't have much more to do, so you're going to want to tear something down on a PvE side of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think that I like the idea, and that's where I think you may end up finding that you're on another server and you're like, wait a minute, where'd that armor set come in? So you see this really cool stuff, you see these really cool bosses. The server might be like, dang, we want to have that experience here too. Like, man, like, so, and again, but then that's where I can see Metropolis falling if all 4 Metropolises, like, let's say there's 5 Metropolises, everyone bands together. It's like, you know what, that one needs to come down. Like, we're so done with that content, and I get to see people fighting to hold on because it's like, no, this is our place. But I could see if it was a worldwide decision that we were just like, you know, it's time to go. We want to experience something, which is kind of like a holy cow, like that could be an incredible thing. So I could see how a lot of people would rally together for that, because you have no really especially if it's a military one that there's really not a lot of benefit for me. I'm like, well, okay, well, let's lay siege on that one. But I don't know if I would want to destroy that, like what you said, the economic one or even the scientific one. I'm like, man, there's great goods coming out of that one. That's benefiting me. Man, I'm getting those shops of that, you know, so there's certain things like if I'm getting a benefit. So I don't know, man. There's so many like variables and possibilities that I'm just like, my mind's like, man, there's so many ways this can go, and that's for every single server. So, but I get what you're saying. Like, I think in Conan, one of the issues was that you couldn't really progress that far because it was so PvP heavy. Like, you just couldn't experience the game. I think Minecraft is another good example. If you're just on some random server and it's just, I was building some cool things and some dude came with dynamite and just blew me up, and I was like, what the heck? Like, dude, like, you couldn't do anything, and so you had to find kind of like a server that kind of protected, and like wouldn't, like, you could buy plots, or you had to like, so, but this random open world, you definitely have some issues where it's like, oh, like, what's like, so I think that's, is Ashes of Creation going to be so PvP oriented, or are we going to be able to develop our trades and our classes? Because if we can develop our trades, like, I don't want to be a part of a server where it's chaos. I would definitely want to be part of a server where we were pursuing some PvE. I could develop my trades. I could, like, have cool shops, and we're like have this worldwide collaboration. Like that to me would be pretty exciting. And like, hey, let's go and get experience some different raids, or let's go ahead and, like, that would be really cool. That would be really, really cool. The only other thing I think we didn't talk about the nodes is there's also going to be 5 castles in the world. So they're castle nodes. And these are kind of PvP things as well, unless we're going to talk about that in the PvP part. There's also some surrounding nodes that support that castle. So those are some even additional things and additional information that we didn't hit on for nodes. So as you can see, there is a lot of stuff, just like Tarnish was saying, there's a lot of stuff going on for Ashes of Creation, where it's like, whoa, it's like a pot of stew, man. There's so many things in there. It's like, what's going on?
Yeah, definitely would suggest reading, checking out this wiki on your own.
Yeah.
They definitely have a wiki out. This is where all the information really is on the wiki. They don't have a website that they actually post a lot of information. They have the forums where you can go on there and just kind of ask questions, but you will get a lot of negative feedback if you don't just come and read the wiki. They're not very friendly to the newcomers. So let's make sure that you read the wiki and then get onto the forums. I guess the next thing we should probably go over would be the classes real quick, just so you have a general idea of how they work. So here's the kind of a little chart here of the, I guess, the primary and then the secondary decisions you can make. Do you want to explain how this works so it doesn't confuse everybody in a simple way if you can?
So if you're taking a look at this, it's a little intimidating, right? Because you're like, wait, there's 8 classes and I can have 8 secondary. Does that mean that there are 64 classes in this game? Wait a minute. Some of you are like really excited by that. Some of you are overwhelmed by that. Some of you are like, wait a minute, how do you balance 64 classes? Well, there's not really 64 classes. So there's 8 classes. So you have your bard, your cleric, your fighter, your mage, your ranger, your rogue. So you have these different 8 classes. But the way the secondary classes work are they're meant to be augments. So and you basically you're enhancing or giving yourself options on your skill tree. So imagine I'm a rogue and I want to have some more maneuverability, or I want to have some more. So instead of backstabbing directly behind my target, I want to give myself just my playstyle. I like to hop around more, and I want to have like a bigger cone in the area that the back that I can go ahead and get my target. So maybe that's where you choose a certain subclass, right? You choose your augment, you choose your so then now you can pick those talents. So it's not necessarily making you overpowered. It's making you so you're just expanding abilities, or maybe it adds some resistances, this trait and this talent. So it's not meant to be game breaking, like I'm a double rogue and I'm going to destroy the world and I have an impossible stealth. That's not really what it's meant to be. Um, Rogues are going to be able to stealth, but they're still going to be able to be detected, and you still can kind of make the outline of them. As the wiki says, again, this is all subject to change. I don't want to like pin my reputation to this staying exactly. This is again on the wiki as of today, and as of this week, and as of last week, as we've been going through and gathering this information. But so there's all these abilities that you can enhance, you can expand. So for me, I love healing. Right, here's my little priest shirt from World of Warcraft that I played a priest since BC up into Shadowlands. All right, even up into Classic, because I never got to experience vanilla. So I would I love healing. Like it doesn't matter what game I play, I want to heal. All right, I love healing. So I can now have my cleric, and I can go ahead and pick a cleric augment. So that's like the subclass, and now I become a high priest. So now my priest abilities become deeper. So I can go deeper into the priest ability. So I can go really, really focus and narrow, and like I am going to do these things, or I can kind of have a very spread out healing experience where maybe I have some enhancements on a bubble, or maybe I have a stronger, ability to have a healing over time instead of straight raw healing. So there's different things that you can develop with your augments, and some of them are really interesting. It's like, wait a minute, I could be a mage. Does that mean I'm going to be able to get all these mage abilities? It's not meaning I'm going to have all the mage abilities and all the priest abilities, right? But maybe some attributes of being a mage. Maybe I have a blink that I don't know that for sure. But maybe I get a blink that if I'm in trouble, I can hop somewhere, So that would be kind of cool. But it's just different things, enhancements that you're going to get. So again, so there's 8 classes, but then you can take traits and attributes to expand your abilities um, in your class. So that's kind of how it's meant to be. Not you have 64 classes to choose from, because that would be holy cow.
I guess it'd also be a good idea to explain what a PVX is, because
Oh,
the game is actually not defined as a PvE or PvP game. It's
yeah.
actually defined as a PVX game. So I'm just gonna read what it says here. This is from Steven Shafir. He's the creator and funder of this game. He goes, "We'd like to refer to ourselves as a PVX game. Basically, in those systems of PvP, PvE, crafting, they're all intertwined. They're independent on each other, interdependent on each other. Our system is developed. Our system of development really requires some interdependence there between those things. You're going to need to craft to give you the best items. You're going to need PvPers to secure cities and castles. You're going to need PvEers to take down those world bosses for those materials to craft. So, I don't know, when when I hear that, it just reminds me about every other MMO I've ever played. I don't really understand why he chose the PVX. Maybe it sounds cool. I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, every game I've ever played, there was always PvP and PvE intertwined. When it came to MMORPGs, just it tends to be part of the game. It's one of the things we love about World of Warcraft, for example, is when we leveled up, there's all these iconic moments where, yeah, we're leveling, we're PvEing, but then we run into a rival and then we fight, and then someone wins, someone loses, right? And then now maybe because it's needed to acquire like cities and castles, I guess. Maybe that's why he's more PVX. Yeah, it's just so you understand what PVX is, and that's what they they like to classify themselves as. Now for the classes, My stance is very simple on classes, and this goes to any MMO. I like to see classes be very well balanced so that in PvP it comes down to who's the better player versus who has a stronger class. I don't like seeing the master dual spec out there just crushing everybody. And there was a time where, I mean, honestly, World of Warcraft has been very imbalanced throughout its entire history. Um, but there's been kind of a rock paper scissors type mentality there, where certain classes have advantages over others, and I'm fine with that as well. But I'd prefer there was a moment in Star Wars history where things were a bit more balanced around the board. Um, they got a little bit of critiques for being a little bit too similar to all the specs being a little bit too similar. So they did change it up a bit. But I think Star Wars did overall a good job. And I hope that they, as intricate or unintricate this is, I hope that is well balanced so that there is a fun PvP community that can actually have fun and feel good about it instead of having an ESO situation where everybody is rolling the same combination because it's super overpowered, or there's a couple of them that are just really strong, and those ones have a rock paper scissors on them. And now you have a trifecta of these same three classes fighting each other over and over and over again. And if you're not those three classes and builds, then you need to get the heck out of the way. Like, it's just a horrible way to play the game. So hopefully they have that in the back of their mind when they did this or doing this. I'm not quite sure. Obviously, it's pre-alpha, so likelihood of this being balanced is pretty low. What are your opinions on the way this is all set up?
Yeah, I definitely would hate to invest, time, energy, money into this game and then get there and there's basically 2 or 3 classes you have to beat because I want to heal, but oh, guess what, Rick? You went into the open world and you got killed by a rogue and he camped you. Yeah, he got corrupt. Yes, but maybe he found a way of bypassing the system and figuring out a hack to kind of, and which has been mentioned on the forums, by the way, and that's something that I think they asked directly to Steven. So I think there's always ways around things, right? So I'm like, well, so then I'm gonna get killed, and some of my loot then goes to that person who kills me. So is that gonna really encourage me to keep going full throttle? Well, no. Now I'm worried about I need to get protection, and so it's gonna slow my crafting. So that means all this incredible crafting I'm not going to be able to experience. And again, that was one of the issues I think with Arc was difficult. Like people could just come and I mean, you couldn't build anything great if it was just a straight PvP server because everyone's destroying everything. You couldn't really advance very far. So I think that's straight. If it's so PvP centric, which again, it's supposed to be PVX, but I think one of the things that we looked at was that 20% of the instances are going to be they're gonna like the dungeons are gonna be instanced. 80% are gonna be open world, and I think Tarnish, you want to talk about your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So as obviously I'm a huge PvE nerd. I've ran a top US guild in World of Warcraft and in Star Wars: The Old Republic. I've tackled the hardest content in both those games. Not to mention with a casual amount of time, we only rated 1 to 2 days a week, and we were able to see the hardest content in the game and conquer it. So obviously, with our aging community, like we don't have as much time to put into the game anymore. This is a recurring thing I'm noticing that we're all getting older. We're the same people getting older. There's definitely some newer people coming in, some new generation, but majority of us are still playing the game from back when we were 15. Like we're still here, we're still playing. We're still trying to do what we always have done, but we just don't have the time, right? We have kids, we have families, we have jobs, so it's easy to find people who want to raid but at a competitive level with but only a couple of days of availability. So when you want to say that only 20% of the instanced uh, dungeons and raids are only 20% of them are instanced, and then on top of that, some of them cater to solo quest lines and group quest lines. So that means there's less than 20% that are just actual, just instance dungeons that you can go do. This means that being contested by any world PvP is going to not only hurt uh, the PvE content, but the those who are trying to achieve those wonderful titles and wonderful trophies that you have in the game. When you're being contested and you're limited on time, this really puts a huge kink into the majority of the player base that wants to do PvE content. And I don't know anyone that's completely. There's very few of us that are completely anti PvP. We all tend to want to PvP a little bit, and we don't mind it. But when you get to the point where I'm trying to kill a boss and you have a rogue camping my healer, or you have a few group of them just, or the worst part is once your tank, they're all camping the tank, and you need the tank. There's no way you can go into a dungeon without a tank. So you're waiting for your tank, but he's getting camps, and the whole raid's out there fighting some other raid just to get their tank, and then it's an hour later you get into the dungeon, and like, oh well, we only got an hour left, boys. We gotta get it done, you know. And what that does, it really hurts the PvE community, really. So I was hoping that, now obviously it's a percentage, so 20% or whatever, say it's 18%. Let's say there's a million dungeons. Okay, that's plenty of PvE content. But the reality is, I don't think it's going to be a ton of dungeons. I don't think it's going to be an absurd amount of them. And then on top of that, what are the difficulty levels, right? And this is where the PvE content and the PvE community, like, this is where we need to be heard. Is we want to down hard content. Hard content cannot be contested, because then you can't really clear or down it, right? Unless you want to repeat of what happened in Classic WoW and their world bosses, which is completely horrible. Like, no one enjoyed that more than 15 minutes. And then what happens is the world bosses don't really get done, because then no one wants to fight for them for 4 or 5 hours. Especially, I said, think about the PV communities. A lot of us are casual. We can only play a couple days a week, and we only got a couple hours. So we log on to fight for a boss we never get a chance to kill. Like, that's bad for the PvE community. One of the other topics, it would be the raid sizes. The good thing is they're very flexible on this. They're saying there's content for, I think it's 8, 16, and then 40. So there's a lot going on there. I would prefer for the raids to be a little bit smaller. Obviously, they have a huge group size. A typical group size is supposed to be 8 players. So I'm fine with that. It's unique. It's interesting. They have a lot of support. There's a lot of different support classes they can pick from. I was one of all the classes. There's a lot of unique different classes and combinations you can pick, which I really like. My question is if we're even going to be able to see them with the way the rest of the game plays out. Because if you're PvP minded, knowing that you're going to be contested around every corner, you have to really think about how you're going to build and play your character, which means full on healers may not be a thing. It means full on tanks might not be a thing. Likely not. The likeness to find a healer or a tank is going to be very rare. So how are these bosses going to be tuned? Are you going to need full on tanks to do it? And then if you do have full on tanks, those people need to be completely babysat anywhere they go, because they're not going to be able to defend themselves. So there's a lot of questions I have, and like, and this isn't pre-alpha, guys, so a lot of this could change. A lot more development, more information come out and be like, oh, okay, this works a little bit differently. But just from, like I said, from a top end raid leader looking in on this, there's a lot of things I've seen that I have a lot of questions and concerns about. It just, I want to see those hybrids. I want to see how it works. I want to see bards. I want to see these cool classes, these cool support classes, similar to what we had in Classic with shamans, where they didn't do the most damage. But they healed a little bit. They brought totems, which increased everyone else's damage. It'd be cool to see more classes like that. That they're not here to be the top DPS, not here to be the top healer. They're here to bring buffs and other things, but also do some damage and some healing. And on top of that, on top of everything I just said, there's also the issue of meters, knowing what you're doing, knowing how you're going to be able to affect the raid, your group, and seeing what kind of impact you truly are having on your group and your team. That's where the biggest joy comes from playing the support classes, is seeing how your support actually is affecting your group. And I'm not saying you can't 100% tell that you're helping. I'm sure when you pop Aura Mastery in World of Warcraft, you definitely know that you're reducing damage to the group. But having some kind of meter or live action, the ability to be like, oh wow, okay, so I really saved us when I popped that cooldown at that time. It really made a huge difference. And as much as you could say, oh, you can sit there and just watch. And I played Conan Exiles, I played Black Desert Online, I played all these open world, I played Arc. The reality of it is simple. Like, if you don't have a meter to base it off of, the amount of time and effort, combined with the fact that we're trying to be competitive and have fun and really be able to justify bringing everything and experiencing everything, the meters are going to help us get across that very easily. and without having that, it's hard for us to say we're going to have competitive, high end, and really difficult raid encounters if we don't even know what kind of effect half our classes are doing or having an effect of. So um, I have so much to say about PvE content. Like I could literally talk probably for another 3 hours. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass it off to you, Rick.
So I do remember doing world bosses in many games actually, and especially in a PvP environment where suddenly another tribe or another group rolls up on you, and you're like, no, it's hell. It's terrible. Um, they target me. I'm just like trying to like kill and keep everyone happy, and I'm working my little butt off, and like it's actually I'm one of the first targets in that environment. But the problem is Tarnish is right in that open world dungeons could be very sketch, to say the least. So I think having a row kind of waiting for you at the end, you finally get there, and then we finally made it, and then both of our healers get killed, and then we're trying to get them back. Then another group comes in, and then we're competing with them. We race to the end. We're like trying to get there. Oh, and it's already cleared. Sorry, someone did it like an hour ago. So now you just wasted all that time. Try again tomorrow or an hour later. So I think there's a lot of issues that could arise that just wouldn't be fun. So I think that I love the idea of having PvP, open world. That's great. But I don't know if it's going to work as effective to have almost every bit of your PvE in the open world. Now, I know that there are balances for PvP to try to, and we kind of talked about like just being there. Basically, you have actually. Do we want to? Are we talking about the corruption? Is that next? Is this a good segue into that, or is that later?
Sorry, I got any mic. Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are going to be PvP next. If you have something that you think could
Sure.
help,
Yeah.
yeah, I think the corruption system should probably be presented so people have more of an idea of what is there to counterbalance some of the issues that we're concerned about.
Yeah. So basically, corruption, you can imagine everyone's walking around. You're going to have these little dots above your head. I think watched the anime Sword Art online, and there's like these little, like a little green or a little red or like little indicators above you. So basically, you can have green, purple, or red. So green means that you're a non-combatant. You have done nothing. You're not doing PvP. You're picking your flowers, and things are great. So then purple means that you have actually either defended yourself, someone attacked you, and you defended yourself, and now you're a combatant, you're fighting, or you've killed somebody. So your first kill, like so let's say I'm a non-combatant, I attack another non-combatant. Now I'm a combatant, right? So I attack someone. I'm really pissed at this guy. He keeps like taking my flowers. Dude, get out of here! Whack, whack! I kill him. Now I'm purple. Okay, so now if I am purple and I attack a non-combatant, I'm now going to be, and this is the second thing, you kind of see the non-combatant there, is now the purple in the middle graph is attacking the green. Now they become corrupted. So the bigger the disparity between your corruption and the person you're killing, so I am not into just killing random people for no reason. I'm probably going to have zero corruption. That's just the way I'm going to be. Like that's just the way I play. I'm a cleric. I don't really want to. I don't want to kill people. That's not my thing. So you kill me and you have a corruption score of 75. That is a huge gap. Now you get that gap added to your corruption score. So you didn't just get a little bit of corruption. You got a whole bunch of corruption that you just got thrown on you. Now if you were red and you killed me, ooh, now that big giant gap is going to get added to your corruption. And so if you're thinking, oh, if I just die once, well, no, actually, because the gap could be so wide between where you're at and where they're at, it could actually be pretty difficult for you to get rid of all this corruption that's on you. So, so basically, if you're killing people who are in open world just randomly, you're doing your player killer, you actually can gain corruption. So you can either be green, purple, or red. And that graph, you can kind of see what happens. Like, so if a red attacks a red, or a purple attacks a red, a combatant or a green attacks a red, there's not going to be any penalty to you. So you can be one or the other. And yeah, so pretty interesting. So yeah, the wider the level disparity between the players. Oh, so yeah, and so let's say you're like a level 50 and you're killing like a level 7 or something. Like, get out of here.
Yeah. I'm glad that that's there.
Yeah.
I just read that right now. I was like, that makes so much like okay, that helps because like if you're ganking lobies, like that's a scummy thing to do. You know what I mean? It's a fucking scummy thing to do. So there
Yeah.
should be a fat cost for that. Now, if it's
Yeah.
the same level, then now like then there's other issues. Like I said, because of the fact that there's like a green person can be ganked anytime. You know what I mean? Which is how it is in World of Warcraft. You go to contested areas,
Yeah.
you have to all of a sudden you got to be like, okay, got to be aware because I can be ganked, right? So you have to plan things accordingly. But um, I know I do like the fact that you can get more for that. I think that there's a few issues I have with this, and just simply put, that there's a few systems that we know for a fact are a way to exploit this. Again, this could be changed. I'm sure they will change. I hope they change this. Like I know a lot of PvPers that came into one of the Q&As with Steven, and they pointed out that there are ways to exploit the system. So again, they are aware of it. So I'm hoping that they do fix it, or at least just adjust this in a way that it's harder to do it. So it takes more preparation, so that it's harder to exploit. Because removing corruption is simple. You get killed, it lowers your corruption. Multiple deaths may be necessary to remove all corruption. So if you've been ganking a bunch of lobies, you're gonna need to get killed a few times, right? But there are a few things like we know that player deaths don't. Well, so let's say you take off all your armor, and then you have your buddy kill you. There's really no cost to that, so that's one way of exploiting it. The other way of exploiting it, I believe, is by logging out for a long period of time. However, that's a little less likely it's going to happen, right? You want to play the game eventually, right? So again, this system combined with the fact of PVE is more where I'm concerned about it, because PvPers want to PvP, no one really gives a shit. You know what I mean? Kill each other. you know, it's part of the game. There's a lot of fun activities with PvP, which kind of makes me want to play as a PvPer, makes me want to participate, is through some of these objectives.
Yeah, and
But
so here's the cool the unfortunate thing. So I'm gonna get killed at some point. Being a little healer, running around, picking my little resources up, and doing things. I'm gonna get killed, and actually, I may not be a gatherer, just because I know I'm gonna be killed. I actually, so the trades actually have like the gathering, then you can do the refining, and then there's the actual like the artisan stuff where you're like making these epic, you know, gemmed rings and tiaras and big giant breastplates and like pauldrons. And so there's like three different things that you can do. I may have to skip going and gathering, which I just love. I'll put on a show on Netflix. I'm just running around the world picking up my things. I probably can't do that, being the class that I'm going to be. I probably am going to be reliant on others to do the gathering, and then someone doing the smelting, and then I'm going to be the artisan. So there's going to be three different types of things. But you know, if because here's my problem: if I'm running around picking up all my flowers or my stone or whatever I'm gathering, and I get killed, then a percentage of my stuff flies in my body, and they just loot it. Like that's kind of sucky, and I take durability damage, so I have to pay to repair. Not just money, I have to pay goods and materials, which this whole game like is all about the materials. So I'm gonna have to repair my armor. Which to me, I'm like, well, if they're making someone who just turned red for killing me, and they're now going to have to, if they had a damage when they die to their armor, like maybe if only if you were red, even if the stuff in your inventory, if you die, then you have to like you take damage on that. That'd be kind of cool, because then that would be some sort of penalty for like going. So it's like, but then again, now you're really penalizing people who want to do PvP. So there's so much things to like figure out, but I just don't want this to be a game where it's like a gang fest, right? Where we're just going to go out and kill people, which I think it could become, and it's just an easy way to make money. Or I have to have a character that's a rogue that's sneaking around, gathering stuff, and I can fight back. It's like, oh, good, bring it. Okay, no, like let's go. I mean, I may have to do that, but now it's now two characters, and this game's going to take so long to level. It's going to take a lot of time, energy to just get that one character through. I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know about character number 2. I don't know if that's going to be even viable for a long, long time. So, um, but yeah, if there is some sort of way to make sure that if you turn red, like you just can't take off your gear and okay, kill me. Like that would be a more fair way because I took durability damage when you killed me. It'd be nice if like okay, well, you want to dish it? Well, guess what? You're gonna go ahead and get it dished to you as well. Like that would be
Yeah, I do have one question
yeah.
that I guess I don't know. I'm sure it's been answered somewhere, but are you able to take your gear off while you're in combat?
Not when you're in combat, no.
No.
So if you're
Okay.
in combat, no. But um, yeah. So if you've killed me and I'm dead, if you're not in combat anymore, then you're
Then
not
you
in
can
combat
take it
anymore.
off, and
But
then
I
yeah.
don't see, and I don't. What I don't know, because I so if you turn red, and here's the thing. Well, why can't a player just turn red and keep killing people? Because when you're corrupted, suddenly like corruption's like a real thing in this world. There's going to be areas that are becoming twisted and dark and like really literally figure like the trees are all gnarled and like there's corruption. So if you are becoming corrupted, like let's say your body's deformed and like I don't know if that's physically gonna. They said there's gonna be a physical cost, like you're gonna look corrupted. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if you're actually literally gonna like turn nasty, but you suddenly aren't be able to equip that armor. That armor gets forced off of you. So you're suddenly not able to use your weapon. And here's where I'm confused because it says that, if you're really corrupted, you can't use your gear. So how are you going to gang people with your fists? And it gets to a point where you're like, well, I kind of have to die or I have to like do these quests because I can't do anything. Um, so then if you die, then you don't take any durability damage because it's in your inventory because you couldn't wear it. So you're almost taking off the person's gear so they can die, so they don't have to pay the cost of. So I'm hoping that's where I'm kind of. But here's the negative. If you are red and you die, your gear, your armor, your weapons, there's a chance that you can drop it. Me, I'm not dropping my gear. I could have like this incredible healing mace. I'm a green. I'm non-combatant, man. My gear, you can never touch my gear. My gear is my gear. I'm a non-combatant. If you're red, there's a good chance that that could fall. Can you imagine you have this legendary, like epic, crazy piece of gear, and you're like, ah, like I gotta get back to my body, like, like that. That's definitely a disadvantage. But if you go back and it's in pristine condition, you died, and now I can start attacking. Ha! Like I don't know about that. Like make it like I have to go get this thing repaired now because dang, its durability broke, and I don't want my dagger to break.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that here it says that when you're fighting a bounty hunter, you actually gain all your power back.
So yeah, so bounty hunters are from the military, and they actually won't take further corruption for fighting a bounty hunter. So a bounty hunter can track them. There's going to be a spot on the map. A bounty hunter can come after you, and a bounty hunter does not also take corruption when killing somebody who there's a bounty on. So that is a non-corruption event. That is like you're fighting. You're fighting. You're like that's a fight.
But yeah, I definitely see where you get weaker and weaker every time you gank somebody who doesn't want to fight you. You get weaker and weaker every time you kill them. And then eventually you get to the point where it'd be really hard for you to kill them. They're probably just out heal you, right? But then there's also a point where maybe that person's enticed to fight you. And once they become purple, it's a
Yeah,
whole nother
it's
it's a
like
whole
you
nother
know what?
game.
I might as well kill you, and then let me go through your ashes. Oh, I have your dagger now.
Yeah. So that's the way the system is supposed to work. But you gotta understand the kind of community that we are now. There's
Mm,
so much min max going on. You have to take that into perspective. There's
yeah,
so much min max going on. The people who are trying to kill you, they're gonna min max just as hard as you are trying to min max against that raid boss. So they're gonna kill you. They're gonna have a system set up to try and prevent those cons, right? So bounty hunter is gonna come up and he's gonna have you're gonna have a fair shot against a bounty hunter. So if that's the what you're hoping for is for these police officers to come in and save you. Well, he gets it's a one-on-one fair fight there, So if
yeah.
the person killing you is a good player, you better have a really good guy coming. And
See,
not only that, they're gonna have friends, so it's gonna turn into a big old thing.
and what I don't see is because since this is a non PvP event, if I'm a healer and a bounty hunter comes, can I heal the bounty hunter and I'm not going to be a combatant because this is not.
No, you'd
See,
be a combatant.
but it says if a green person attacks a red person, you don't get to be a combatant.
I believe it does. Let me look.
So if you go back, so a green attacks a red, they're still a non-combatant. So I would be like, oh,
Yeah, you're right. So non-combat attacks are red.
yeah,
No change.
yep. So I could defend myself against a red. Now, if I defend myself against a purple, then I become purple too.
So if you healed
Yeah.
the guy coming to help you, you would become purple. That's what this is here. So you heal purple, you become purple.
Yeah.
If you heal or you attack
Myself,
red,
and I'm
you
attacking
become
red, yes. I think that I'm like, hey, because you're red and you're attacking me, I'm just trying to protect myself. Now, if it's a combatant, then I'm fighting a combatant. But if you are red, then I think I'm totally I'm like, oh no, I can like break out and try to kill you. And if you're weakened already, okay, let's go.
So I believe that's already a change. I think in the beginning, if you were green and you attacked a red,
You become purple.
you defended yourself.
Yeah.
You were supposed to become purple.
Yeah. So
So
that's a better that's better for sure.
yeah, uh, yeah, because it sucks getting picked on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you're playing a healer or a tank, you can't really defend yourself,
It's true.
and you're just getting beat up, and you're trying to do what you need to do for raid, and it's just like, come on, man.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like I said, I don't know. I still think the system needs work. I think it needs to be something a little bit less. They're not a lot of. It's not going to be an everyday thing where you see someone exploiting things, but it's going to be a thing where you know that there's a certain rogue that hangs out around a certain dungeon, and he might get to the end to get ganked, kind of thing. You might know that that's a thing. You might start noticing, like on our server, there's a couple of rogues. They run around together, and they gank people on our server. You know what I mean? That's a normal thing. So they both gang up and they do nothing but just annoy people. You know, so knowing that you have people like that, you know, you just got to be careful, and you'll start to learn patterns and things like that. But hopefully, there's no exploitation going on. Hopefully, there's a way they can cut that out. They can find a way to do that, even if that's just with like percentages that they gain of corruption. You know, similar like they did to the killing a low beast. Maybe there's something they can do there.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, PvP, PvE. Really, the baseline of everything. Like I said, most MMOs, I always say there's two legs you stand on. That's PvE and PvP. You mess up one, then the game typically doesn't do very well. Trying to mix them and make it one leg, I feel like is I think you used like a bike analogy the other day.
I did.
Yeah, this is like some people can ride on one wheel, whatever it's called, a unicycle. Some people can ride a unicycle. Sure, I'll give you that, right? But most people can get on a bike and ride, and then yeah, a lot of us are gonna fall on our face when doing a unicycle, right? And some people can do it. Some people are really good at it, but the majority of people are pretty good at riding bicycles, right? Two, you know, two wheels. We get on it. It's balanced. We can rock and roll on it, right? So when you have both, when you try and mix them, I think that's where you start to lose it a little bit. So obviously you have to have both, right? I think every good MMO has both, and they do well at both, right? They might not be the best PvP experience on this game, but they have a decent one. They have really good PvP content, then they'll do pretty well. If they have really bad PvP content, their PvP is okay, then they might do okay, right? But the reality is you have the two legs. You need both of them in order to have a successful MMORPG. So really, you need to have both and do well at both. So what the problem I see right here is that PvE needs a lot of work. The PvP definitely could use a couple of tinkers here or there. I think the PvP is naturally going to be there either way you fold it, and then they have some really cool PvP objectives. So they've checked. I think they've done well at PvP. A couple of adjustments here or there. PvP is going to be fine. PvE needs a lot of work, a lot of work. So if I had one thing I could talk to Steven about, it'd be PvE content. I definitely would have them add some hard modes, maybe modes that you have to go into a dungeon for, maybe especially you speak about like maybe a legendary boss or something. I think that needs to be instance and it needs to be very, very hard to kill. There needs to be some kind of anything that you could imagine an add-on could do better. I know he's saying add-ons are a no-go, but World of Warcraft said that for a long time. Star Wars said that for a long time. Final Fantasy said that. The list goes on. Every single MMO that I played has had add-ons. Now you might say they're not allowed, but they are being used. So what we don't want to see is the game have holes where an add-on can fill that void, because what's going to happen is that add-on is going to fill that void. Do you have any input on that?
No, I think that's really well stated, right? So I think again, some people just play PvP. They love the PvP. There's other people who could give a rip about PvP. They just want to do the PvE content. So you're creating a community of kind of supporters and the people who are like actually going and doing the grinding and they're making stuff, and then PvPers or they're like going out and they're like they're buying the pots for their things, and so you're creating an economy. Um, so but if you just favor one over the other, and I think that what you're getting at is having more instances, more dungeons, or more things that is going to keep that PVE group going, by maybe not making things so open world, or maybe creating just against those places where it's like we don't have to worry about someone sneaking in and messing with us. I think that's certainly a way to go. Unless what they're trying to do is have like an economy. It's like, hey, listen, man, we're gonna go do this raid. We want to hire your group as security. Someone pops out, just like protect the healers. Like you're not gonna be part of the raid group, but just keep us. So maybe that's what they're trying to do, where it's more of alliances and stuff. And I could see that maybe going, but now it's like even more money. It's like, well, geez, we're just trying to run this raid. How much is it going to cost us to go kill, whoever? It's like, because it's almost feeling that it's going to take that much effort just to do stuff, just to protect yourself. Um, it's kind of that would be very difficult. So, I don't think it should be so hard to do PVE content. It's looking like that's the challenge right now. If that's what I want to do, PvP, the sky's the limit. I can almost do anything in this game. PvE, we're finding some ways that maybe PvP can interrupt that process and interrupt that flow, and that would definitely be unfortunate.
Yeah, and again, I'm a little biased. I tend to really like the PvE community. I started off as a PvPer, but once I got into PvE, it became so much fun, and I created some of the longest lifetime relationships through raiding. So I have people that I've been friends with for 10 years, 15 years just from raiding, and really I noticed the consistency with raiders where PvPers aren't always as consistent. Because PvPers, there's nothing keeping you here for the next week or the next thing. It's something you're preparing for next season or whatever the case may be. You just show up, you kill people, you have a good time. It's very simple. But the raiding, it's more complicated. You have consumables, you have buffs, you have raid comps, raid compositions, people, relationships, alliances, right? That are normal. Like I used to discuss raid strategies with other raid leaders. Once we got our server first kills, I had no problem. Or once the server first races were over, I had no problem releasing strategies or helping other guilds out. But there's always been relationships, right? So sometimes there's guilds I hated. There were competitors, and sometimes there's guilds that I didn't mind. I didn't mind helping them out. They'd give me a BOE or two, and I'd help raid lead for them, or I would give them some secrets or some tips. I had my guildies write guides for their players, whatever the case may be. But the reality is PvE suffers too much. There's going to be a big issue with consistency. PvP players, and this isn't a dig at PvP players. I used to be one. We're very inconsistent. Like we'll play this game today, that game tomorrow, come back to this game, then go back to the other game. Like we're all over the place because we're just going for the next thrill, right? And some people do stick to one game. They play that one game over and over again, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But for the bulk of the community, I want to say that a little bit more casual, and the fact that they'll play for a couple of weeks and they're gone for a couple of weeks and they're back for a couple of weeks, where the raiders are always there every week doing their raid, trying to gear up, trying to craft the next material, trying to prepare for the following raid. And with this game, there's a lot of systems that I think are really, really cool. They have trophies, they have titles, they have castles, so you can guild halls. They have all these wonderful things, but achieving them seems very, very difficult. And I'm not saying difficult in a good way, like the way that raiders would want it to be difficult. I'm saying difficult as in the fact of just accessing the content. Accessing the content is becoming a kind of a difficult thing. And I could be completely wrong on this. Maybe we go in there and we just stomp it, right? And not only that, but it's easy to control. Maybe PvP isn't as effective, but if it's tuned the way I think it should be tuned, I think it will be a problem. I think it's going to affect how people build. I think it's have a hard effect on the population and community on what they actually, how they build that character and what characters they play versus what they want. And that's going to really hurt, I think, the immersion of the game. which is something I know they really care about. But if you're too busy trying to play this specific build because you know you're in PvP a lot, you could hurt the PvE community in that way. Just simply we're not seeing enough shamans. We're not seeing enough other things. Just keep throwing shit, Rick. I
Sorry,
was watching
a cat's going where it's not supposed to. So
real life PvP right there, boys.
yes,
Real life.
sorry.
Yeah, it was funny.
My aim was perfect. I landed on the sofa
Got that skill shot.
landed on the sofa next to the cat, so that way it kind of startled it, and then it got off the table like it wasn't supposed to do. I'm like, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
yeah,
it's good, it's good.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. I had a feeling that's what you're doing.
Like,
That actually brought up a good point that I don't think we've covered yet, which I don't know. It's actually more for PvP and PvE, is the combat system. The combat system they're using is actually a hybrid. I don't know how I feel about that. I think it's on here. So if you hit the Z key, you can then switch to back and forth between the systems. So you have the free action combined with tab target. It's going to be a mix of both. And I have to say, I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like there's going to be, let's see if it's down here. No, it's not. I feel like it's going to be an issue with balancing when they do that. There's going to be a class that can just tab target and destroy someone's face, where the other classes are going to have to be, skill shotting and trying to perform at a different way because the class doesn't really work that way. I can definitely see like maybe a hunter type class being overpowered when they have tab versus someone who has to go skill shot, not being balanced, and especially in a game with so much PvP involved. I could definitely see that being a problem, and not to mention PVE. It's not really fair in that aspect either. So I feel like they need to make up their mind and choose one or the other. I have no problem with the Conan slash Black Desert Online play style or Arc play style, but I also don't mind the tab target. So either one really doesn't matter. But having both, I think it's an issue. It's going to cause a balancing issue for them. And I think they're worried about immersion with the tab targeting. I'm not quite sure. But they need to pick, in my opinion, they need to pick between those two. I don't think they should do a hybrid system right now.
I think part of it is that they are trying to figure out what players like because they really want that combat system. And I think because they didn't pick, what's happening is some players like this, some players like that. So now how do you pull the trigger when they probably should have just said, hey, let's do this? But now it's like, hey, which one do you like better? It's like, ooh, why can't we keep them both? And so it's like, you know, that's kind of the like you should maybe it would have been wise and maybe they're regretting and maybe they're like, dang, you know what, now we have to develop both these systems and now we have to make sure that they're both balanced with each other. Because imagine if I can do a skill shot, granted they've already said that headshots are not going to be one shot, so skill shots are not going to just because your skill shot and you do this incredible like headshot, no, that's still not a one shot, that's just going to be a critical, just like you could have gotten when you were just tab targeting. So they're trying to balance it, but there's a lot of things that they are having to do with two systems. And I think one of the big concerns is this game, as we're finding out, like it is so in depth. There's so much going for it, guys. We have not even like, I mean, we haven't talked about the naval battles. We haven't talked about the pirates. We haven't talked about the ocean, guys. There's so many things that we haven't gone into that it's like, I mean, this game is so immense. Do we have time? And there's some things like especially animations with characters that they're already like, listen, we don't have time to do that. So instead of having every single character having their own casting, they're just going to be reusing some of those animations because it's like, listen, we got to get this game out. And I appreciate that. But now we have two combat systems, and if we're already saying, well, with our animations we're having to cut some things, is that really going to benefit us to have these two combat systems? And maybe it's like, hey, you're kind of new to this system, so hey, just use tab targeting, and maybe you can go ahead and go to the advanced system. Maybe that's where they're going. I don't really know, but I again, I like a challenge, so I'm probably gonna go for the one that can give me the most healing, because that's just so if it's more challenging, great. I don't care. I'm down to do that. But again, I don't know if healing's gonna have the same ramifications as a DPS. So we'll find
And see,
out.
I think that's a con, right? It's kind of sad that DPS need more damage with the other skill shots, but then a healer can't heal more by going to skill shots. That would make sense. So like, there's
Yeah.
so many things that can be imbalanced, or even so, or that this is a superior system that everyone's using the superior system. So what's the point of having the less superior system? If this is the game and how it's played, they should just be able to learn and adapt how the game is, especially when it comes to something as central as playing the character. um, that's a little hard to digest. That's why I think the hybrid system was not a good idea, but I don't think it's done. I think they're going to choose.
Yeah, we're
I
in
just think
Alpha
they're
1.
having
Yeah,
I think they're having a
it's
hard
early.
time choosing. I think it's really what's happening. I think both of them work, and I think both of them are fun. They're just trying to figure out how to do it, because I'm sure the skill shots feel great when you hit them. And I'm sure, like, for example, in Black Desert Online, I had a lot of fun smashing stuff, with my big hammer. But the reality is, I dueled somebody, and the duel took literally an hour.
Hmm.
It took an hour of us fighting, um, to finally get a winner, which I won, by the way. Yeah, I won.
Like I
But
just
that
threw that in there casually.
yeah,
Just,
an hour battle. I made sure I won that shit. So yeah, it was a never. Not next time someone dueled me, I was like, hell no, we ain't doing no hour duel.
Dude,
It's not gonna happen.
I did a duel in WoW with it was a holy paladin, and I'm a holy. Sorry, it was a chanking paladin, like a prop pally, and I was a holy priest. Dude, it was like a 40-minute duel because basically he's just healing himself and I'm healing. He could not do enough damage to kill me, and so finally, I'm a priest, by the way. So like we were kind of close to a cliff, and I'm like, So I fear him, mind control him, run him off the edge. And like half the guild was gathered, and people were like, oh, "That's cold." I'm like, "Who's next?" They're like, "Heck no!" And I was like, I was done, man. I was like, "This is too long." That's funny.
Yeah,
Good
no,
times.
it's. So like I said, I definitely see the pros of both sides, but I think they're just better off picking one. And I hope that they take I would say the add-on advice to heart as well. Um, you don't want to create a system where an add-on replaces a building structure.
Hmm.
Like we talked about the economy, the economic node, and having one of the perks is that you get to actually see analytics to your auctions in the market. We know that someone's going to create an add-on for that. We know they're going to do it. So you want to make sure that you don't have an add-on replacing something that you would normally build a building for, because then that's going to cause people to not build that anymore. So there's a lot of things that you have to kind of think about when you're creating games, especially this is things that you would not have to think about 10, 20 years ago that just unfortunately are a thing today. People are lazy, people are min maxers, they're cutting corners wherever they can, and they're exploiting wherever they can. So add-ons are a huge unisex for that. I know there's a lot of people against the DPS meters. Um, it's hard for me to like, I understand where you guys are coming from. I think the big thing everyone's afraid of is toxicity.
Mm.
The problem is that I would much rather have intelligent information out there that we can knowledgeably look at and say, all right, listen, you're underperforming here, X, Y, and Z of why, or whatever the case may be. But at least we know. And then versus the raid leader who's like, this group sucks, or the tank goes, this group sucks, everything's dying really slow, I'm out. We don't want that kind of
I think you
toxicity.
bring up a great point. People who are going to be toxic are going to be find something to be toxic for. If it's not a DPS meter or a healing meter, toxic people are toxic, right? So I I've encountered toxic people in every game I play. The ones without, the ones with. So heck, the forums. Holy cow! Just the forums, like for this game, Ashes of Creation. What the heck? Like you just were asking a question or like mentioning, hey, DPS meter, blah blah blah. You were not being argumentative. I remember your post. It was, and literally it was as if hell had like frozen over and every demon spawn came out after you and was like rat. And they didn't even read your post. Like they didn't even like it was like they were mentioning things that had no bearing on what you were talking about, and it was like I didn't even say that. Where are you coming up? It was some people were just toxic, even just in response, Tarnish, to what you posted on the forums. It was crazy. So if people are going to be toxic, now let me tell you how I have seen meters used before. I had a raid leader. In fact, Tarnish did this when he was raid leading in a guild that I was a part of his for. like he would sit down with you and say, "Hey man, let's take a look at the meters. I see that you're not casting this. Like, you know what? Can you explain that?" And you got help from your raid leader. They actually would like work with you, and they would like explain things to you, and you would learn, and you're like, "Oh, okay, like what? Yeah, so if you could do this, and then this is what you want to do. Here's like your rotation, you know, and you know you should probably spec into this." And it was like they gave you information, and it was a community. See, there's a positive for use of meters. There's also the toxicity and the elitism. I get that. I hate elitism. I cannot stand elitists who are like, "Hey, yes, your IO score is what?" Okay, that drives me crazy. Like, it's like, dude, I can heal. I just came back to the game. I haven't played it in a few months. Who cares about? Just try me out. Let's do a Mythic Zero. Let's go. Oh wow, you did really good. I can't believe it. I'm like, I know. Like, let me do. Let's do my 6 key. Come on, like let's go. But there's some people who are so fixated on certain things. So I understand the the arguments against meters. I do, because there are going to be people who are toxic with them. I get it, but people are going to be toxic about anything and everything anyway. Pick your subject. If they're gonna if they're not going to be toxic about the DPS meter, they're going to be toxic in another way. So you're going to still have to deal with it. They're still going to be elitists. You're not going to filter them out of Ashes of Creation. They're just going to find another way. They're going to find another way. So if you can't deal with just the question or the comment about a DPS meter, you are like literally it was toxicity on the forums. It was pretty crazy. Um, but yeah, I think there is a really valid reason and a valid use for a meter. Um, but if you don't want it, I would love to hear the alternative. And if the alternative is just like, there's nothing, how can I, as a healing officer, which I have done for many years, sit down with my healers? I'm like, listen, you ran out of mana at 20%. You're using your biggest, look at your overhealing. You have a 68% overheal. Like, your target died. Like, how can, let's go ahead and use a lower rank heal. Hey, let's do this. Or, hey, let's, like, what other heals do you have? Like, well, I want to be number one. I'm like, you came last on the meters, right? And I don't really care about the meter, but the reason you came last is because you were completely mana inefficient and your target died. So let's keep your target alive. That's how I use meters. Like, we improved the raid, we figured out what was going on, and I realize that's not what everyone does meters for. Some of it's just bragging rights. But there are people who are going to use it as a tool, and I understand that it's a tool and that's what it can be used for. But what's the alternative? Nothing? So I can't help you. When I played Final Fantasy, I had no idea if I was doing it right. I still don't. And I could have gotten a DPS meter, because there, by the way, for those of you who say there aren't, they are. You're not supposed to, and if you do use them, you're not supposed to say that you do, and you're not supposed to put down other people if you do. So it's like a shh, don't talk about it. But I didn't get it, but I really wanted to, because I'm like, well, should I use this ability, or well, is this? I just wanted to know, because I just wanted to do my best, and I had no way of measuring it. I had no care about someone else, or if someone else. I just wanted to do well, and so I just fell away from that game because I just didn't know how I was doing. I just need a benchmark. Like, how am I doing? So, my thoughts on meters.
I think that's exactly what Steven should be concerned about, is having people enjoy the game but fall away from it because they can't tell how well they're doing. They're wiping on a boss. There's no way for them to figure out why. Especially if there's going to be really, I mean, if you're going to have really hard bosses that the real PvEers are interested in, we need to be able to critically break down our characters and figure out why the boss is not being completed. If we're not building correctly, if we're not bringing the right stuff in, there's no way for us to know unless we literally beat our heads against it for 2-3 times as long, which is all because, like I said, add-ons are going to be created. So now we're sitting here in our secret community doing what we're it's not right. We should be able to openly do what we need to do, and it'll become more fun to do so. So that's as if you can even make, like I said, you can fix some of that PvE content so it's more obtainable to everybody. Toxicity, like I said, it's been in every game I've ever played. It's just there, right? And my thing is, I didn't mind being experiencing it when it was at least, like I said, I'm not gonna say it was enjoyable when it really wasn't, but the fact is it was so much better when at least I could say he could say, hey, you're pulling like half of what the DPS the tank is doing. The tank is nothing damage mitigation. He's under gear. There's really no reason for this to be the case, and we're wiping on a boss because of your damage. I didn't feel as bad leaving that group, and if not, I could actually offer to leave because I knew I was being carried. But if there was an issue where, you know, I really just don't know some of the arguments here. Like I think some of them said they just want to come in and after a hard day of work and drink beer and hang out, which is completely fine. The reality is every game I've played, there's just different levels of guilds. There's
Yeah.
social guilds for social players who that's what they're for. They come in, they drink a beers with their friends, they go raid content, but they don't care how many bosses they get down. They don't care if they even clear the dungeon. They don't care about any of that. They're just here to hang out. And those guys are cool. They're called social players. And there's so you typically social guilds. There's levels and requirements for guilds and communities. And I don't think you should be telling guild leaders how they should run their communities or what standards they can have. So if, like, for example, there's always the high end, super hardcore, play 5 times a week, raid all week, do all the dungeons all week long. You have to be the highest performing DPS, period. And then there's also everything in between that, and then the low end guild that's there for RP social reasons, just a friend guild. There's all these different kinds of guilds, and there's all these different kind of standards. So some guilds might not care what your DPS is; they just want to have a full group, and they plan on clearing maybe the normal bosses or the easier bosses. And then there might be another guild who's kind of like how our guild was more. We wanted to experience the hard content, but we didn't have enough time. So instead of clearing all the raids, we might have to pick one or two at a time and clear those two at one or two at a time. And then next week we'll do the other two, and then the following week we'll do the following two. But there's all these different standards, and then all these different guilds in their communities. And some communities might not give a shit about DPS meters, and might not choose not to use it, and that's fine. You don't have to. And that's the great thing about it. But when you say there's no DPS meters, all you're doing is hindering the top of the mountain, where they're trying to accomplish the server first kills and all those other things, and taking down the hardest content this game has to offer and collect all the trophies and titles and stuff they have in the game. But you're taking away from those players and making it harder on them just because it makes you less immersive when you have a choice of using it or not. And you might feel like there's a pressure for you to use it, but really, no. If you're playing with your community, with your friends, and you guys don't care, there's no point of having it.
Correct.
You control your own experience.
Yeah, and I think that just having extra information is very empowering because you can manage your own community. You can manage, and guys, there are some people who are like, we're just chillax. We don't want meters. You don't have to have a meter. I mean, you really don't. However, what I've noticed when I first started raiding in my first MMO, I I knew very little. I did not know how bad I was. I didn't know there were such things as meters. I didn't even know there was such thing as a raid. I was just leveling happily, oblivious to the fact I knew that there was dungeons, and then like I didn't know anything. And honestly, those was very innocent, fun, like clueless time of my existence. It was actually like I kind of missed that just obliviousness, right? That was kind of fun just to not have anything. When I discovered raiding, though, and just the satisfaction of tackling something I knew was really difficult. And guys, my first raid, I'm not going to tell you I did a good job at all. I went in there, I had no clue what I was doing. I was like, what is going on? And like I didn't even know what frames were. Like, okay, so I think I only had like a party frame. I didn't have a rate. Like I was like, I just had like the automatic thing that came out. I didn't know how to organize it. I was like, why are all these names? I was overwhelmed, and people's healths are dropping, and I'm like, and then I ran out of mana, so I'm just standing there. I don't know what to do. I'm not doing any damage to the boss. I'm just like, I just did nothing. I just didn't know what I was doing. It was bad, man. It was really bad. But there's different levels, right? So I was just that casual, like I know nothing, and I worked my way up, and I got to the point where, um, I'm on this really top tier guild, and I worked my way. We raided 5 days a week, 5 hours a day, 25 hours a week. It was bananas. It was crazy. And then I got promoted. I got to move up from there to a guild that only did like 3 to 5 hours of raiding a week. Oh, but they cleared all the content that we took 25 hours to do. They were ridiculous. I honestly missed that raid group because it was so fun, and there was just that satisfaction. We just hung out. We just shot. Just it was such a great community. But there's different levels, and I don't think we should all have to be at that top level because who wants to give 25 hours? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, some of us are looking at this really cool gear, like, ooh, I want that really cool gear, and so some people do it for the gear. I really do it more for the community, and I also started raiding competitively because it saved me time. I kind of got tired of raiding 20 hours, 25 hours, and we only get so many bosses down. I'm like, geez, if I can do all the bosses in 5 hours or 4 hours, why would I like spend 25 hours on this? So I'm like, I have a life. I want to do other things too than raiding. So I wanted to be more competitive, and I actually saved a lot of time by. So I don't know. I think that it's you don't. I don't want. I'm hoping the game does not cater to people who are just. I don't know. Just well, I don't want there to be elitism. Well, there doesn't have. I mean, there's gonna be elitism everywhere. There are elitists everywhere. It doesn't matter. You can't lock them out. They're gonna find something to hold over your head. Something there. That's just the way it's gonna be. And so, at least we know how to deal with elitists and meters. Like I don't have. I just won't. I don't run with a meter. I don't need a meter. I don't really care about a meter. We know how to. We know how to. If you don't want it, you don't have to have it. But I think just forcing players to be without it is kind of unfortunate. So
I have to say, the next topic I kind of want to talk about is in-game shop. In-game shop for a lot of games is kind of a negative, even though we may enjoy the perks of it. We may enjoy, having it. Even in Star Wars, I think it was even kind of a con. Although Star Wars did a kind of a unique thing where they were able to kind of open it up to everybody through the auction house, the GTN. So you're able to buy these boxes, which I think they got rid of the boxes last time I played. But anyways, you're able to buy these items, and if you don't like it, then you're able to put it on the GTN. Other people can buy it with in-game currency, which allows it to kind of open up freely to everybody else. So even if there's a rare item that's really cool, people will sell it for in-game currency, and then they get things they want. So it kind of worked out for everybody. But at the same time, there were some negative things that are just inevitably going to happen when you have in-game shops. For World of Warcraft, they have a huge issue with the mounts just being really, really cool from the shop that are so good. They're almost as good as the ones you get for the hardest achievements that you get in the game, which kind of degrades the achievement of getting these mounts. So with this game, what's your opinion on the shop? Is it pros, cons? What are your thoughts on it?
wow, um, the way I the way you just presented that, I thought I was going to answer one way, and I'm looking at it another. My opinion has changed. Because when you've connected it to other games that I have played, um, that changed my stance. I really like games that let me as a player really immerse myself. Oh, sorry, my camera. Let me wake it up. Wake up, little camera. See, look, I got disconnected. I got disconnected, and I'm talking about being
It's corruption,
connected.
guys. Rick's corrupted.
Yeah, see, that's what happens if you get corrupted. So you don't want a little red thing above your head, guys. You want to keep it green, man. Keep it green. Okay, I got a little green thing above my head. All right.
What is that, Tampa?
No, that's what you use, man. I just it's called the sticky note. Yeah.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah. Okay. So at any rate, um, like honestly, I want to be immersed in the game, and I want to be able to raise funds in the game, and I want there to be an economy in the game. Whenever you are instituting outside things, outside mounts, outside, you're removing the money from the game. You're removing. So now I'm looking outside the game. You're ruining my immersion because now I'm looking outside the game, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to buy that mount. There is literally a whole trade called animal husbandry in this game, and you can go out and get the coolest animals, go out and make the coolest mounts. Like you can make mounts like that people ride on in this game. like Ashes of Creation. You know how cool that is? That's so crazy cool. Like I am like, dang, that's cool. Like, wow, that's fun. Like, what a profession. Like, super awesome. So in Ashes of Creation, I think what you're referring to is that they have these mounts that you can buy every month. Some skins, rather, not mounts, but you can basically get skins for your mounts right now. So every month it's like, hey, look at the new mount skins. I think that's what you're talking about. And honestly, before you started talking, I was like, I really don't mind it. If you want to get some cool mount skins, show that you're an OG, whatever. But what that's actually doing is I think that is kind of taking away from the game. Like, where did you get that? How do I get that? Oh, you can't. You had to be in July 2019. I hadn't heard of Ashes of Creation in July 2019. I can't get that. I actually tried to buy that fox with the two tails, like that monthly thing. And I thought I bought it, and it was because I was like, I thought that was super cool, and I was like, oh, I want to get that, and I thought I bought it, and then the month after, I went in like I checked, and I didn't. The purchase didn't go through, or it glitched, or something, and I was like, and now you can't go back and buy it, and I was like bummed. I'm like, so I'm really really bummed. I'm like, man, I would like to. I still want that fox. Like that would be so cool. I want to be on a fox.
The fox does look cool. And this is part of the issue with in-game shop, I think, in my opinion, when it comes to effects like that. Like when there's really cool mounts that you buy in a shop, now it takes away from what you can get in the game. And especially when there's like you hit it on the head there. I didn't even think about that. There's actually a profession to make mounts. I don't think it gets cooler than that. So when you have a profession, so now you're taking away from a profession, but you're taking away that. And not, I mean, I'm looking at these prices, and I'm just like, holy cow.
Just a little disclaimer. So this is the prices are not just for the mounts. This is so if you were to buy into the access to the alpha and the beta, that's really what this is for, right? But it's like a package deal. So if like so I've already reserved for MMO Avengers, we've already reserved an alpha 2, a beta 1, and a beta 2 key. So we will have, I don't know if there's going to be an NDA, so I don't know what, I know one of them's not. So we'll be able to talk about some things, show you some footage and things.
And
like
Steven,
that.
if you want to send us another one, that'd be very cool. Just saying.
That would be cool. And if you want to give me a little fox buddy, I am down with my little fox buddy. I even paid for it. I meant to buy the dang thing. Like I don't even know. And that there may even be a record like, oh, he did try to get that, and I really did try to get it. It didn't happen. But so after you buy the package, you basically log in, and it's like, oh, so now it takes you to the store where you can buy the mount. You can buy this cosmetic skin for your armor. You can buy the thing for your oh yeah, there it is, right? So you can buy the caravan cosmetic, the costume cosmetic, the mount cosmetic. It's going to cost you about $115 to buy all of the cosmetics this month. And I'm sure that there are some people who are buying it every month. So they're like, in addition to paying the however many whatever package they bought, they're spending $115 every month because they want to get every single one of these things, or maybe they're just getting the mount skins. I don't know.
I do want to point out that it is going to give you $125 in Embers in-game marketplace credits. So it does look like there's going to be more shop stuff available in the future.
And I'm wondering if that's going to also include game time. So if you can get game time with that, and maybe you can earn Ember credits, like WoW tokens. So I don't mind that. So in WoW, you can, in World of Warcraft, if you play retail, you can actually use your in-game gold to pay for your subscription. I'm okay with that. I mean, that to me is a real-world use of my gold, and that's an incentive for me to keep making money and investing in the economy. And but again, what's happening now is I'm removing that gold from the economy, and I'm not buying other things, and I'm just giving it back. It's a money sink. My money's leaving the server forever, and now other players don't get it. So it's kind of unfortunate, I mean, to even have that. But again, a lot of people play, and I have a friend who has not paid for his WoW subscription for about a year and a half because he just buys that WoW token every month. But yeah, you're getting the Embers, you're getting game time, you're getting access, and you're getting like one of the things. So you can see the different packages. Yep, and you can see there's different packages. So and you get like the different things. So if you like that stuff and you're like, dang, so how do you get access to the beta, the alpha 2? You have to buy the right package. How do you get, so this one's alpha 2, 375 is alpha 2, beta 1 and beta 2. And alpha 2 will be the persistent.
So the difference between the Voyager Plus and the Voyager not Plus, you still get all the betas and alphas. It comes with the cosmetics though. That's what you're getting, and also the Ember amount is what's changing. So
and the name
this
reservation.
one, yeah, this one gives you. Do you get both? I don't. So this one gives you the name reservation. It gives you a freehold, and I think the caravan cosmetic skin.
Which
So
you can buy afterwards if you don't want to pay $375. But some people like the idea of reserving their name because they're like, I mean, that's.
yeah,
I mean, if you really want to play this game, that is a really. I don't know. Like, there's a name I try to get every time I play. Obviously, I'm Ricayu. That's. I think I have to be Ricayu because that's just what I am in every game. Like, I am the Ricayu. I don't know.
this is, I don't know. Maybe I'm used to being a poor man, but this is a lot of money to be dumping on a game, man.
To do just to play the alpha. Yeah. Usually
Like
you don't pay anything to play an alpha.
normally, yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. Normally, I put in for it, and sometimes I get in, sometimes I don't. But you know,
Yeah.
it is wild to see these kind of numbers.
Yeah.
This is more expensive than anything. I mean, I'll be honest. Normally, the game is cheaper to buy it in a beta or an alpha state. At least, like for example, Forest. When I tested that, I got I think I got pre-alpha. It was like $5, and they let me test it and everything for free, and I was able to give them feedback. But the reality is like 375, like bro. No, no, not even a little bit. You know, like
Yeah.
even a 75, I'm like, man, you better give me something good for $75, man. Like, what is that? A cabinet, a watch, a key? Like,
No.
God, damn,
The
man.
watch is game time. The coin is gold. Those are greaves, and then a beta key, a beta 2 key. Yeah, so that's what you get for $75. So you get to play beta 2, which that's going to be far away. The alpha 2 is supposed to be this year. Supposed to
Yeah,
be. So we actually will, if it's not an NDA, we'll actually be able to give you some specific results on the Alpha 2. So you don't have to play it right away, but I will tell you, it will be. I don't know. You might be like, man, this game's too good to pass up. I really want to explore it. It's a beautiful game. Then you can come in and you can also sign up for it. So I don't think we meant for this to be a little commercial for Ashes of Creation, but hey, there you go, Ashes
yeah,
of Creation.
yeah. For me, it's simple. I have a lot of interest in the game, but right now I feel like it's really early. It's hard to tell
Yeah.
what it's going to be good about. It's hard to really say. Um, there's obviously, I think their weakest point is PvE content, and I think their strongest point is PvP content. And then I think they have a lot of cool immersion and a lot of cool, like this game would be one of the sickest RP games if you want to just get in the town, just RP, dude. Like this is probably gonna be the game for you, as long as the PvP doesn't ruin it. But the way the PvP or RP servers usually work, so hopefully they do have RP server. I know they said they were going to do that, so there should be some RP servers. I think the RP is going to be a lot of fun. I know for PvE and PvP specific servers, they said no to that because they are PVX. So hopefully the RP is a lot of fun, and you might find people jumping on RP servers trying to PvE. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think overall, I think this game has an amazing. I'd say it's a fantastic idea. I think they have a ton of good, positive things that are in the game. I like their crafting system. I like how the world works with the node system. I like the PvP objectives. I think they're really really solid. It's one of the things I mentioned before when you asked me what kind of, if I made an MMO, like some things like PvP objectives is one of them.
Yeah.
That just you have to have it in there to have really good PvP. And then two, it has really good achievements and titles and everything you would want for a guild, and it does PvE. The only real big issue I see with this game, and it is a monumental issue, it's going to cost them a lot of players, but then this is pre-alpha, so hopefully they change it, is the be able to access the PvE content, and then the be able to actually complete very, very difficult PvE content, having the tools to do so and having the ability to do so uncontested. Because if they're really difficult, you don't need a PvPer in there to make it any harder. It's going to be hard enough on its own, which is what PvEers come to conquer, is that really, really hard PvE content. So what we strive to get. So you really need to have that in the game. You have everything set up. You just need to give it to us. And once you give it to us, then you're going to have PvEers creating characters for PvE purposes. You see more bards, you're gonna see more everything else. So you want to see those support classes that are really, really cool. Someone who just wants to show up and sing us songs or fighting this big dragon. You know what I'm saying? It's awesome. I want to see it. I want to see it. I want to see what kind of effects I can have on the raid. As a raid leader, this is what I want. I want more classes. I want to have more sophisticated thought process when I'm building a roster or building a team for a raid fight. I want to know what I'm going to be sacrificing, bringing too many of this class or too many of that class. And I want there to be some decision making where if I bring, you can't bring one of every class. That's something that I really want. I really want to be able to really pick and choose, and knowing that if I take this, I'm sacrificing something else, right? Which makes your performance in the raid important. So if you come and you slack off, it's like, man, not only did I bring you, but you slacked off. You know what I mean? So I lost this other potential ability, and I also could have bought someone that could perform better, right? So that the performance needs to matter in a raid fight, and then you need to have the buffs and everything else that need to matter as well. So it's fun to strategically think about things and in a raid perspective in PvE and high end PvE at that. So for the world bosses or whatever, if we walk up and just run them over, that's not gonna be very fun.
Yeah.
You know, we need that difficulty. And if they're too hard and the PvPers are just on it, we can't even touch it. It's like, why are we even gonna try? You know, so like the PvE content has so much potential, but I feel like they need to unlock and give it. And like I said, this is an alpha one, so I'm sure they're gonna make some changes to this. I'm sure it is. But if I had advice to give Steven, I think that's probably what we should end it on, is what advice would we give Steven? I would say there's two things: PvE content, accessing the content, and making sure he fills any holes that an add-on would do better. Like, you just need to make sure there's no place for add-ons when you launch the game. Obviously, eventually they're going to happen, but make sure that when you launch the game, that there's no reason to have an add-on, that the game does everything we want it to do, right? So like, I think we should have maps in the game that allow us to strategically create fight fight encounters, kind of like we have with Exodus raid tools and World of Warcraft, where we can kind of draw out the boss. We know where the boss is at. We can draw markers and do raid plans and strategies. I want to see stuff like that. I want to see raid markers like in World of Warcraft, where you place a marker down and it kind of shows that's where I want people to stand. I want all this stuff in the game. Obviously, a meter of some sort. It doesn't have to be as in depth as Warcraft logs, but I need something so I can kind of see as a raid leader. And then obviously the content needs to be difficult and have increased scale difficulty. Now, I know we didn't really talk about it, but the way it's intended to plan now is that the better you perform on the first boss, the harder the second boss will be. And the better you perform on the second boss, the harder the third boss will be. However, how they're going to measure how well you perform is yet to be determined. And I think it could be very exploitable. And I have a feeling that it will be exploitable. So I'm hoping that it is in depth. I'm hoping that it is something that we can really tangibly look at and be like, that's really, really cool. It sounds cool, but I want to be able to see how it really works before I make an opinion on it. So what are two things, or anything else you want to close on that you would want to tell Steven about Ashes of Creation?
Well, I definitely, first of all, I think the game is beautiful. I think you can definitely tell a lot of blood, sweat, tears, laughter, joy, a lot of amazing things went into this game. I can see it. I can see its potential. And I think your words, the creator's words, it was, we're making the game that we've always dreamed of. And that's a huge undertaking. And I really love that you want to include the community and you really want to like have our voices, and I think that's wonderful. However, I think one thing I would say is just a caution. I think there's a lot of people um, that are giving recommendations and suggestions on the forums that are very self-serving, and they're not thinking about the broader community. And so they're I'm seeing a lot of comments that they're very pointed, and I don't know the motivation why they're like dying on that hill for that. Like, oh no, no, no. It's like I'm like, well, like how much? Like I don't know why they're fighting so hard for some things and against some things. So I guess I would just be careful, I guess, who you listen to, because I think there are some people who are being very demanding of things versus suggestive, and so I totally think that Tarnish is on the money with some of the things he is saying and presenting, and I think there's a lot of people who have great advice and feedback, but I think that um, it's good to listen, but I don't think I would listen to maybe here's my advice. I hope that you are listening to the people who are going to help make the game this immersive, beautiful, creative world that we can just get lost in and have fun and build a community that we can help and be supportive with one another. And part of that, as a healing officer in numerous guilds, has been like, I want to support my raiders. I want to help them. I want to and if you give me that authority and the ability, the more choice you give me in game, where I can actually like analyze like logs or analyze things, and maybe that's an officer thing only. Maybe that's what you do. Like you have to be an officer in the guild to view these logs, and then you can choose to share them. And so that way it's just not accessible to everybody. So I don't know how you would like not do that. I don't know if that's even possible, but there's definitely ways that I just want to support my group, and I hope that you can keep doing things that are going to support the guild and the group as a whole, because that I want to do this with my friends. I want to build a community that we can manage and have a great time together. So keep building up the guild, and think about these ideas that we've talked about and other people are talking about to just make the guild experience wonderful, because that's who we're going to be playing with. That's where we're going to be making our friends. So that'd be my advice.
Yeah, there was an actual suggestion from one of the guys on my phone. There were a few positive suggestions on there on my post. A lot of negative, a lot of badgering, a lot of this and that for various reasons. But and I'm not gonna say I'm 100% innocent in it. But the reality is, there was a couple of really cool posts. And one of them was an in between where raid leaders could see logs and DPS meters and raids, which were supposed to be instants, I guess. But once you left the instance, it would be wiped clear. You wouldn't be able to see it. I don't know how I like that, because as a raider, sometimes it takes me hours. Sometimes I go get food, come back, and then I start breaking it all down. And I don't want to end up losing some of that data. So as a raid leader, that'd be pretty inconvenient. But the reality is, we need something if there's going to be competitive rating in this game. But yeah, like I said, I think this game has great potential. Just like I said, there's a few things that I would definitely like to see changed. The node system, for example, I think is great. I think the professions are great. I think I'm starting to regurgitate stuff. So, yeah, I guess that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Please subscribe, become an MMO Avenger. We're working on stuff for you. We're still developing the channel, so hopefully soon there will be actually bigger perks to actually becoming a subscriber, and then eventually there'll be Patreon supplies, all this other good stuff. So for the time being, though, your support is just being a subscriber is amazing. We're going to be making a Discord channel, so on and so on, just to help give you guys insider information. And we want to talk to you guys. We want to hear your feedback. So please comment below your thoughts on Astro Creation, things you want to see changed. If you think we're wrong, right, give it to us, man. You know, we're adults. You know, we're fine with it. You know, we're fine with criticism. You know, obviously try not to be negative, try not to be
constructive is good. Yeah.
Ugly. You know, just be nice. We're fine with criticism. I'm used to it. I've dealt with all of it as a GM, so and raid leader. So,
and this won't be the last time we talk about Ashes of Creation. I think probably the next time we sit down and we look at it, and we definitely are paying attention to like the news, and so the developer update that's going to be coming in April. We'll take a look at that, but we're going to be definitely paying attention to what is going on. And as news comes out, the next time, if you guys have questions, go ahead and type those down below, and then we're going to go ahead, and that'd be kind of maybe a cool way to kind of recognize just those people who are following, and like maybe a little shout out, or at least answering those questions over this format. So feel free to do that. We want to hear from you. You're joining the MMO Avengers team, and yeah, we're gonna go kick some butt and save MMOs. Peace out, guys.